Hey everybody, I'm Adam, and this is Think Club. Does militant atheism harm the poor? That is a question that I am going to be addressing in this video. I am curious about this topic, and I don't think it's something that many people touch on. So I am going to bring this argument to the table and see if anyone else is interested. The values that are in conflict here between the will of the militant atheists and the will of the poor and dispossessed is objective truth, which the atheists enjoy, and the well-being of the poor and dispossessed, who might be better off in religious contexts. So I want to start off with a clip here of Richard Dawkins from a TED Talk. I use this term militant atheism, and I usually get a lot of people in my comment section that say atheism isn't militant. Atheists are against war or the military. And I don't think they realize that where the term actually originated. So I'm going to be playing where the term came from and giving a little background context of why I'm using that term. The context of the video that is missing is Dawkins wants to destroy religion to protect what he calls the evolution lobby from creationists, because the creationists wanted to teach creationism in public schools, and the evolutionists, the pro-scientists, the biologists obviously didn't like that. And I am on their side. I think we should teach evolution in school. I don't see evolution being in conflict with religion. The Pope believes in evolution. Catholics believe in evolution. There's lots of religious sects that believe in evolution. The creationists are just kind of a subset, and they get a lot of airtime because they say crazy things. So obviously in this environment, this internet culture, the people who say the craziest things tend to get attention. So the creationists are perceived to be a far bigger threat than I think that they actually are. So I'll play a little bit of what Dawkins has to say here, and we'll go from there.
But here I want to say something nice about creationists. It's not a thing I often do, so listen carefully. I think they're right about one thing. I think they're right that evolution is fundamentally hostile to religion. I've already said that many individual evolutionists, like the Pope, are also religious, but I think they're deluding themselves. I believe a true understanding of Darwinism is deeply corrosive to religious faith. Now
that's his opinion. I don't think it has to be. I think he's stoking that tension between religious people and scientific people because it serves his needs. He's the one that wants the war. He's the one that's calling this stuff out.
It may sound as though I'm about to preach atheism, and I want to reassure you that that's not what I'm going to do. In an audience as sophisticated as this one, that would be preaching to the choir. No, what I want to urge upon you...
Yeah. It's a delayed laugh. They're like, oh, he's calling us... he's calling us smart. He's calling us the intellectual elite here, all of us atheists. Stroking the egos. That always works. Look at the grin on his face. He's so happy. He thought his joke was going to go unnoticed.
Instead, what I want to urge upon you is militant atheism. But that's putting it too negatively. If I was a person who were interested in preserving religious faith, I would be very afraid of the positive power of evolutionary science, and indeed science generally, but evolution in particular, to inspire and enthrall precisely because it is atheistic. Now,
See, I don't think it I honestly don't think it has to be. I really don't. I think that Dawkins has kind of deluded himself, because a lot of the stuff that I talk about, and I am completely enthralled with evolution. Evolution supports the idea that religion is good for society. It honestly does. Like if Dawkins were studying religion from an unbiased perspective, he would see that. And I have another clip here. I don't want to drift too far off the topic of the video, because my question really is, does militant atheism harm the poor? And it's one of the places where I am most at odds with the militant atheists, because I think the militant atheists, I think in some way their heart is in the right place. They're fighting for the rights of LGBT. That's their thing. That's why they're anti-religious, because they feel like religion is against LGBT rights. And fair enough, there is some element of that. But are you standing up for the rights of the LGBT and stepping on the poor and dispossessed at the same time? I mean, those two values have to be somewhat in conflict. And I don't think they're really in conflict with the militant atheists or the anti-theist community, because they don't recognize this. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this, was because I think we should be pointing this out, because it's one of the things that disturbs me most about militant atheism, is that I do feel like it really puts people who are the most dispossessed in society at a disadvantage. It kind of says, it's the same exact argument that the conservatives have about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And the anti-theists, the progressives, the liberals, a lot of them hate that argument, that bootstraps argument. They want to help the poor and dispossessed. They want to help the oppressed. And if you're promoting militant atheism and hurting the dispossessed, you're abandoning your true core principles. You're abandoning your values. Now, I realize, and I've spelled this out here, that there are two very important values in conflict here. Objective truth, understanding the truth of the natural world, I think is a high value. It's definitely one of my highest values. But standing up for the rights of the oppressed and the dispossessed is, I mean, that's a high value for myself as well. So when these values come into conflict, it's a tough place to be. And I don't think the anti-theists give those of us that are standing up for science and religion enough credit for this conflict that we are recognizing and pointing out. So I have another clip here from David Sloan Wilson that spells out the argument that I'm making in very stark evolutionary terms. And I've used this clip a few times before, so some of you might have already seen it. But it's very important to think about this, in the context of what religion does in society at the sociological level. And we really, if we want to understand religion, if secular humanists want to create a replacement for religion, a synthetic religion, an artificial religion that is just as powerful as religion, what we evolved to understand, they're going to have to figure out these evolutionary principles. They're going to have to compete in the marketplace of ideas for members, for people who want to take their values and live with them. And those values are going to have to make their lives better. So let's hear from David Sloan Wilson here.
You look at social networks more generally, which might or might not be spatial, what you find is that the clustering that we've been talking about, the fact that the high pros, as we call them, the highly pro-social individuals, that if you're a teenager in the city of Binghamton and if you're highly pro-social, then you have a lot of social support. So there's a strong correlation between your prosociality and the prosociality of those with whom you interact. And
this is what I'm constantly saying about how religions are adapted to the environment that they're in. They wouldn't exist if they weren't adapted to that social environment.
It comes from multiple sources. You have a more supportive family, a more supportive neighborhood. You feel that school is more supportive. You're more likely to belong to a religion. You're more likely to engage in extracurricular activities. And so those who give get. And that's the fundamental requirement for prosociality to win at the Darwinian contest. So now, if you're not prosocial, why are you not prosocial? Is it because you were born selfish? Or is it because you have lived in such an unsupportive world that the only way for you to survive in that world is to turn off your prosociality? One way I often put it is, imagine that you're a highly prosocial individual, but unluckily for you, you find yourself in a really mean social environment where nobody's being nice back to you. So what are you going to do? What are your options? Here are your options. There's 4. 1, you can leave. 2, you can try to change those around you and get them to be more prosocial. 3, you can turn off your prosociality defensively. 4, you can remain prosocial and suffer the consequences. That's all you can do. And so who would counsel such a person to remain prosocial in that situation? Now, right away, that tells you something a little bit counterintuitive. That if you think that compassion and altruism is such a great thing, and you think we should all be compassionate and altruistic, and let's say that I were able to take you and succeed at that, so I make you more compassionate, and then you go off and live your life, maybe I didn't do the right thing. It all depends on what kind of environment that you inhabit. And so when we see things we don't like in society or other people who are behaving in a way which is not prosocial, or perhaps they themselves are suffering as individuals, often it looks pathological. It looks like something broken that we might want to fix. But what it really is, it's a survival strategy. It's the way they must be in order to survive in the world where they're at. And that's true not just for prosocial behaviors, it's true for such things as risky adolescent behavior, when teenagers do things that seem...
So he's made the point that I really want to make, that your prosociality is going to be dependent upon the environment that you're in. And I've lived in poor neighborhoods before, and they are very inhospitable places. They are completely inhospitable. Now, I don't know. Religions were basically designed to turn people into more pro-social people, more giving, more forgiving, more apt for reciprocal altruism. That's what religion was designed to do. But atheists believe the opposite, despite all the evidence against them. So I'm really curious if the anti-theists even understand the situation that they're dealing with. And I'm curious too, if you're fighting for LGBT rights, and that is something that's important to you, is there a way to reconcile this? Are the rights of the LGBT people in your lives, obviously they're probably more important than the poor people who you never interact with. But I think it's something that we really need to consider when we're talking about this topic, because if we are counseling people in ways that are going to damage them or cause them to live worse lives or less fulfilling lives, I don't know how you could call that a net positive. And I don't know how you could call yourself a progressive or someone who's fighting for the rights of the oppressed if you're promoting an ideology or a value system that is not good for those people. It's not good for the people who are the least well off among us. So as always, I'm curious your thoughts. You can leave those in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video. Hey everybody, thanks for watching my video. I'm going to be posting daily content here on my personal channel. My main channel, Think Club, is still demonetized, and I am working on getting that fixed. If you have suggestions for topics, you can leave those in the comments below. The amazing artwork that you're seeing here was done by Steph. She is a fantastic artist, and she's working on a graphic novel that I wrote, and we will both be crowdfunding soon. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Well, first of all, if you don't have a purpose, it isn't that your life becomes neutral in a meaningless sense. It's that your life becomes characterized by unbearable suffering. Because the baseline condition of life is something like unbearable suffering.